So this is a classic peak BBC article regarding a trans person, trans woman, obviously very young, and the article is essentially can be summarised by a person goes into a pub and is refused service because they can't be properly ID'd, and the reason they can't be properly ID'd is the ID that they provide doesn't look anything like them. Seems fairly obvious to me. If a pub can't identify you from your picture, they can't serve you. But let's look at the details and try and work our way down through this, because ultimately this is a non-news item made spicy by one factor only, and that is the person is trans. So a transgender woman has spoken of her upset. Apparently her upset is national news after she was refused service in a pub because staff did not think she looked like the person on her ID. Well, I suspect she didn't look like the person on her ID. Otherwise, they would have served her. I don't think Wetherspoon staff deliberately refuse to serve people. I'm not sure Wetherspoon staff ever refuse to serve people. They're in the business of selling drink after all. Savannah Galloway, 19, said she left Wetherspoons on Tuesday in tears after being told she would not be served. Well, as far as I can make out, the BBC thinks trans tears are special tears, unlike the tears of other people. They are little tears from heaven, and every time a trans person cries, a kitten dies, or something along those lines. She showed her passport to prove her age, but was told by two members of staff her picture did not resemble him. Well, if they said that, it's probably because it didn't. Wetherspoons has apologised and said it would review its policies on asking trans customers to provide ID, but stressed that it remained a legal requirement for a valid ID which resembles the person presenting it. I have to say, no shit. So, ultimately, a person goes into a pub, presents a form of ID which has a picture on it that doesn't look anything like the person who's presenting it, and is refused service as a result. Something that could happen to anyone. I'm sure endless people every Saturday night, young people get refused service because they look too young, they are too young, or they can't provide proper ID. To me, the whole part of the problem with the BBC's attitude is this would not be a news item were it not for the fact the person is trans. It just wouldn't make national news. It's irrelevant. Hundreds of people every night, every Saturday night, if not thousands of people, get refused service for similar reasons. The thing that makes it spicy for the BBC is that this person is trans. But I mean, so what? It's irrelevant. She wasn't refused service because she was trans. She was refused service because she couldn't provide ID. Ultimately, this plays into the classic narrative of victimhood for the BBC. What about this person's, young though she is, what about this person's personal responsibility to provide proper ID? It's not clear from the article whether or not she is in the process of transitioning, whether or not she's had any surgery or any kind of treatment to make her more feminine. She looks quite feminine in the picture, but of course people always provide pictures which make them look what they want them to make them look like. But what about her personal responsibility to make sure that her photograph in her ID looks like who she is? Does she have no personal responsibility? As far as the BBC is concerned, if you're trans, or if you're of an ethnic minority, or generally a woman, you are always the victim. You are always the victim. You are never responsible for what happens to you. And I think this is a despicable attitude. This person should have provided proper ID and then almost certainly would have been served. But there you go. That's the BBC for you.